In today's episode, let's have a look at function noise, which we discovered on our previous episode, which is a function that gives us a number between 0 and 1, a random number, but less random in certain ways. So we can create some smooth motions with this function. Let's create a dancing rectangle on the screen, a rectangle that moves around and changes size and rotation. So because this is going to be an animation, I'm going to create here a setup function and a draw function. In the setup function, we will configure some things like the size of the screen, the background color, which I will choose using the color selector, like this one here. I copy the color and I paste it inside the background function. I will paint with white color, and I don't want to have a border, no stroke, so no border for a rectangle, and let's make it smooth so the borders looks a little bit nicer. So there we have our basic settings, and in our draw function I'm gonna start just drawing some random rectangle, like let's say at 100 100, and this is the size of 200, and let's check. Okay, so here we have our static rectangle on the center of the screen. Let's start changing some values. So I will use again a float variable. Last time I called it my num, and the initial value really doesn't matter. We can type anything like a 10, and then on each frame I will increase this variable. Now my num equals my num plus something like 0,1. Let's start with that. We can make any of these things now change over time. For example, this 200 here is the width, so I could multiply this by noise function, and inside we know we have to enter some parameter, which is going to be my num. Let's see now what's happening. Of course, I usually forget to erase my screen. At the beginning of my draw function, I have to enter this background call here. So now it will look more like an animation. So we saw our animation is a little bit too fast and we want to make it slower. So we can reduce this number to make it slower. Maybe not everyone knows how to make 0,1 smaller. If you would like to divide 0,1 by 2, then one easy way is if you add zeros behind, it doesn't really change the value. 0,1 is 0,10. That's exactly the same. And if you have a 10 here, so you know that half of 10 is 5. So you type 0.5. So now if I type 0,05, then the animation is slower. And you can even make that smaller if you want, and the smaller the number, the smoother and slower the animation. So for now we are just changing here the width of the rectangle. We could also change the height using the same technique. 200 times noise, and then something inside the parentheses. I'm gonna use exactly the same value, and we know that if we use noise and the same value inside the parentheses, we get the same random number. So now it's gonna look like it's increasing from the top left corner. How we can have them independent? How we can make the width and the height independent? We can just add here some value inside plus 20. This way, the random value we get is not the same anymore. Here we're getting a random number that depends on my num, and here we get a random number that depends on my num plus 20. So now they don't seem to be linked anymore. The width and the height can change independently. How could we make it increase from the center and not from the top left corner? We've seen this in past episodes. We use a function called rect mode, which tells processing what actually these two numbers mean. This 100 and 100 until now they meant the top left corner, but if I say here rect mode center, now these two numbers mean the center of the rectangle. And so now it's increasing there from the middle of the rectangle. What else can we change here? We could add some rotation. And to change the rotation, I will tap here rotate. We know from previous episode that to use rotate, we should have here 0, 0 and use translate instead. So I use translate 100, 100. To show you that it's the same, I'm just gonna run it like this. First I run translate 100, 100 and then I draw the rectangle at 0, 0. So you can see it's exactly the same as type in 100, 100 and actually no translate or translate 0, 0. You get the same result. The difference is that when we rotate, it's rotating around 0, 0. So this is better to stay in control of our animation. Rotate, what could we rotate now? We can type here another noise, or we could type just anything like 10. And then we see now it's rotated, but it's not changing. And if we want it to change over time, we can multiply 10 by noise and my num, for example. If I use exactly the same value here, like in these two cases, the rotation is going to be linked to the width. It's a little bit hard to notice that it's linked, but let's use same value on all three cases. My num for all noise. You can see now that the rotation depends on the size. So when it gets big, it rotates in one direction. When it gets small, it rotates in the opposite direction. But we can easily separate them by adding some, doesn't matter which number, 30 plus my num. So now we have here 3 different values for the noise function. So now it's rotating, it's changing the size. Finally, we could add also some randomness to the position of the rectangle. So instead of 100, 100, I could say multiply the width of the screen by some noise. What happens then? Then I will get a number between 0 and the width of the screen. If noise gives us a 0 back, then the whole thing is 0. 0 times width is 0. If noise gives us a 1, then we get the width of the screen. So now with this expression we can get any horizontal position. I should add something inside the noise function, like my num, and I will add here something, whatever, 40. And now it's there, moving from side to side. And let's use the same value for the horizontal position here. I'm using plus 40 and the rotation, for example. You can see it's the same, it's different order. I can type my num plus 40, so it's really exactly the same. And now it will look like it's spinning like a square wheel. You can see when it goes to the right, it's rotating one direction, and when it goes to the left, it's rotating in the opposite direction. But if they are different values, then now it will look like it's kind of skating on ice. Now it's no longer linked, the rotation and the horizontal position. And finally, just let's make this also variable, this 100. I'm going to use here a height times noise and my num plus 100. So now it looks a bit complicated and messy, but you just have to look at all these expressions. This is the X position, the Y position, this is the rotation. Any of those can be fixed. So you could just here type 20 if you feel it's too complicated. So you change just one thing at the time. Now we are changing 5 things. The X position, Y position, rotation, and both width and height. And so now we can have this kind of dancing rectangle on the screen.